Muhammad Ali walked into the hotel suite in Johannesburg and saw Nelson Mandela standing by the window, looking out at the city he'd dreamed about for 27 years from inside a prison cell. Neither man spoke at first. They just stared at each other, two freedom fighters who'd paid the highest price for their principles. Then Mandela's eyes filled with tears and he whispered, "Brother." What happened in that room over the next 2 hours would forge a bond that transcended boxing, politics, and race. It would become one of the most powerful friendships in modern history. It was April 1993, 3 years after Nelson Mandela had walked out of Victor Verster prison as a free man and 1 year before he would become South Africa's first black president. Muhammad Ali was 51 years old, and the Parkinson's disease that had been slowly consuming him for over a decade was now impossible to hide. His hands trembled constantly. His speech was slow and slurred. His movements, once graceful as a dancer, were now stiff and labored. But when Mandela's office called Ali's representatives asking if the champion would come to South Africa to meet Madiba, Ali didn't hesitate for a second. He got on a plane with him. The two men had never met in person, but they'd been connected for decades by something deeper than friendship. They were connected by sacrifice, by the willingness to lose everything for what they believed in, by the understanding that some principles are worth more than freedom, more than wealth, more than life itself. In 1967, Muhammad Ali had refused to fight in the Vietnam War, citing his religious beliefs and his opposition to the war. The U.S. government stripped him of his heavyweight title, took away his boxing license, and banned him from the sport for 3.5 years during the prime of his career. He faced 5 years in prison. He lost millions of dollars, but he never wavered. In 1962, Nelson Mandela had been arrested for his role in the armed resistance against apartheid. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. He spent 27 years in prison, 18 of them in a tiny cell on Robben Island, breaking rocks in a quarry under the brutal South African sun. The government offered him freedom multiple times if he would simply renounce violence and recognize the apartheid government. He refused every time. For 27 years he stayed in that cell rather than compromise his principles. During those 27 years, Mandela had followed Ali's career from prison. Guards would sometimes sneak him newspapers. Other prisoners would whisper news from the outside world. And Mandela heard about Ali refusing the draft, about Ali being stripped of his title, about Ali coming back and winning the championship again in Zaire. "He gave me hope," Mandela later said in an interview. "Here was a man who sacrificed everything for his beliefs, just as I had, and he survived. He came back, he won. If Ali could do it, maybe I could too." Ali, for his part, had been one of the most vocal international supporters of the anti-apartheid movement. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, he spoke at rallies, raised money for the African National Congress, and repeatedly called for Mandela's release. In 1985, when he was already showing early signs of Parkinson's, Ali traveled to South Africa illegally under a fake passport to meet with anti-apartheid activists. He was detained at the airport and deported within hours, but the message was clear. Muhammad Ali stood with Mandela and the oppressed people of South Africa. The meeting in Johannesburg had been arranged by Mandela's chief of staff, a woman named Barbara Masekela, who understood that sometimes the most important diplomatic meetings happened between individuals, not governments. She'd secured a suite at the Michelangelo Hotel in Sandton, an upscale area of Johannesburg. No press, no cameras, no handlers except for one person each. Ali brought Howard Bingham, his photographer and closest friend who'd been with him since the 19th. Mandela brought only Masekela. When Ali entered the suite, Mandela had been standing by the window, looking out at the sprawling city. Johannesburg had changed so much since he'd last walked its streets as a free man in 1962. But some things hadn't changed. The poverty, the inequality, the work that still needed to be done. He turned when he heard the door open. And there was Muhammad Ali, the man whose story had sustained him through the darkest years of his imprisonment. For a moment, neither man spoke. They just looked at each other. Ali's hands were trembling, not just from Parkinson's but from emotion. Mandela's eyes were wet with tears. Then Mandela crossed the room in 3 long strides and embraced Ali. Brother, Mandela said, his voice thick with emotion. My brother. Ali's arms came up around Mandela and the two men held each other. Howard Bingham, who'd photographed Ali for over 30 years, who'd seen him in every possible situation, later said it was the most moving thing he'd ever witnessed. They weren't two famous men meeting, Bingham recalled. They were two warriors who'd fought the same fight, recognizing each other. When they finally separated, Mandela gestured to the couch. Please, sit. We have much to talk about. His voice was warm, musical, with that distinctive accent that blended English and Xhosa. Ali sat down slowly, his movements careful. Mandela sat across from him, leaning forward, his hands clasped together. I want to thank you, Mandela began, for everything you did, for speaking out against apartheid, for raising money for our cause, for trying to come to South Africa even when it was dangerous. Ali's response came slowly, the words emerging one at a time, his Parkinson's making speech difficult. I wanted to meet you for so long. Mandela nodded, understanding. I know about your condition. I'm sorry you're suffering. Ali shook his head. Not suffering, living, still fighting. A smile broke across Mandela's face. Yes, still fighting. That's what we do, isn't it? We never stop fighting. You were in prison 27 years. Ali said, each word an effort, but filled with emotion. How did you survive? Mandela leaned back, his eyes going distant. I survived because I had to, because if I gave up, if I broke, then they would have won, and I couldn't let them win, not just for me, but for my people, for all people who are oppressed. He paused, looking directly at Ali. But I'll tell you a secret, Muhammad. There were days when I wanted to give up, days when the cell felt so small I thought I would go mad, days when the sun on that rock quarry was so hot, I thought I would die, and on those days I thought about people like you. Me? Ali managed to say, surprise in his voice. Yes, here was Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer in the world, and you gave it all up because you believed in something bigger than yourself. You went to court, you faced prison, you lost your title, your money, your career, but you never gave up who you were. You showed me that it was possible to lose everything, and still be yourself, still be whole, still be free, even when they take away your freedom. Ali's eyes filled with tears, his hands trembling more now, reached out toward Mandela. Mandela took Ali's hands in his own, holding them steady. Muhammad, do you know what freedom really is? Mandela asked quietly. Ali shook his head slightly. Freedom isn't being outside the prison walls, Mandela said. I learned that in my cell on Robben Island. Freedom is being true to yourself, no matter what they do to you. You were free, even when they took away your boxing license. I was free, even when I was breaking rocks on that island, because they couldn't touch what was inside us. They couldn't make us into something we weren't. Ali's voice came out in a whisper, but it was clear. They tried to break us. Yes, Mandela agreed, but we didn't break, and that's the victory, Muhammad. Not the championship belts, not the presidency. The victory is that we stayed true to ourselves. We stayed free inside. They sat like that for a long moment, Mandela holding Ali's trembling hands. Two old warriors, sharing a truth that few people in the world could understand. Then Ali did something unexpected. With great effort, moving slowly because of his Parkinson's, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. He handed it to Mandela. What's this? Mandela asked, surprised. Ali just nodded, gesturing for him to open it. Mandela opened the box carefully. Inside was Ali's Olympic gold medal from the 1960 Rome Olympics, the medal that had started everything, that had launched his career, that represented his first great victory. Mandela stared at it, shocked. Muhammad, I can't accept this. This is yours. This is history. Ali shook his head firmly. You keep it. You sacrificed more than me. 27 years. I only lost 3. But this medal is a symbol. Ali interrupted, the words coming with difficulty but with absolute conviction. Symbol of winning. You won. Bigger fight than me. Deserve it. Mandela looked at the medal, then at Ali, then back at the medal. His eyes were streaming with tears now. I don't know what to say. Say, You'll keep fighting. Ali said, for freedom, for justice, like you always did. I will, Mandela promised. I will never stop fighting, just as you never stopped. Then Mandela carefully took the medal out of the box and did something that surprised everyone in the room. He stood up, walked over to Ali, and placed the medal around Ali's neck. You keep it, Mandela said firmly, because you're still in the fight. You're still inspiring people. You're still showing the world what courage looks like. I spent 27 years in a cell, but you, Muhammad, you're spending every day in a different kind of cell, a cell made of your own body, and you're still fighting. You're still showing grace. You're still showing dignity. That's a greater victory than anything I achieved. He placed his hands on Ali's shoulders. The medal stays with you, champion, because you're still the champion, not of boxing, but of the human spirit. The two men embraced again, both crying now, not with sadness but with understanding, with recognition, with the deep bond that forms between people who fought the same fight and paid the same price. Howard Bingham captured one photograph before putting his camera down, unable to shoot through his own tears. That single photograph would become one of the most iconic images of the 1990s. Muhammad, Ali and Nelson Mandela, holding each other, two freedom fighters finding strength in each other's presence. They talked for another hour, their conversation ranging from boxing, to politics, to faith, to family. Mandela told Ali about his grandchildren, about his hopes for a new South Africa where all people would be free. Ali, through his slowed speech, and with Howard Bingham occasionally helping with words, told Mandela about his work promoting peace and understanding, about his efforts to bridge divides between different religions and cultures. We're both in the reconciliation business now, Mandela said at one point. You're trying to bring Muslims and Christians and Jews together. I'm trying to bring black and white South Africans together. Same fight, different battlefield. Only way to win, Ali said, is love, not hate. Love. Yes, Mandela agreed. Love, not hatred, not revenge. I learned that in prison. If I came out of that cell hating white people, hating the men who imprisoned me, then I would still be in that cell. The hatred would be my prison. So I forgave them. I let it go. That's how I became free. Same, Ali said. Forgave the government, the people who took my title. Can't fight with hate, only with love. Before Ali left that afternoon, Mandela gave him something in return. He pulled out a handwritten letter, 3 pages long, that he'd written the night before. I wrote this for you, Mandela said. It's about what you meant to me during my years in prison, about how your courage gave me courage, about how your sacrifice reminded me that my sacrifice had meaning. I want you to have it, and I want you to know that when I become president next year, one of the first things I'm going to do is invite you back to South Africa as my guest of honor. Ali took the letter with trembling hands. He couldn't read it immediately because of his tears, but he held it close to his chest. Thank you, Madiba, Ali said, using Mandela's clan name, a sign of deep respect in Xhosa culture. No, thank you, Muhammad. Thank you for showing the world that you can be heavyweight champion and still have a conscience. Thank you for proving that being strong doesn't mean being violent. Thank you for sacrificing your career for your principles. You changed the world, my brother. You changed it. 1 year later, in May 1994, Nelson Mandela was inaugurated as the first black president of South Africa. Among the international guests of honor was Muhammad Ali. Ali sat in the front row at the inauguration ceremony, tears streaming down his face as he watched Mandela take the oath of office. After the ceremony, Mandela, now President Mandela, made a point of walking directly to Ali before greeting any other dignitary. You're here, Mandela said, embracing him. Wouldn't miss it, Ali managed to say. Neither would I, Mandela replied. This is your victory too, Muhammad. You fought for freedom. You inspired me to keep fighting. This moment belongs to both of us. Over the next years, Ali and Mandela stayed in close contact. They met multiple times, spoke on the phone when Ali's speech allowed, exchanged letters and messages. When Mandela visited the United States, he always made time to see Ali. When Ali traveled to South Africa, Mandela cleared his schedule to spend time with him. In 1996, when Ali lit the Olympic torch in Atlanta, Mandela was watching from South Africa, and called Ali afterward. "You showed the world tonight what real courage looks like," Mandela told him. "Standing there with Parkinson's disease, with your hands shaking, refusing help, lighting that torch. That's the Muhammad Ali I know. That's the fighter I admired from my cell." In 2000, when Mandela established his foundation to fight AIDS and promote education, one of his first calls was to Ali, asking for support. Ali, despite his worsening condition, agreed immediately and became one of the foundation's most prominent supporters. The letter that Mandela wrote to Ali in 1993 is now housed in the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville. Visitors can read Mandela's words about what Ali meant to the anti-apartheid struggle, about how Ali's courage inspired prisoners and freedom fighters around the world. One line from that letter has become famous: "You stood up when standing up could cost you everything. That is the definition of a champion. That is the definition of a free man." When Nelson Mandela died in 2000, Muhammad Ali released a statement through his foundation. By this time, Ali could barely speak or write, so the statement was carefully crafted by his wife Lonnie based on Ali's wishes. It read, "I am deeply saddened by the passing of Nelson Mandela. He was my brother, my friend, and my hero. He showed me that true freedom comes from within. He taught me that sacrifice has meaning. He reminded me why we fight. Madiba, you are free now. Thank you for everything." At Mandela's memorial service, a photograph was displayed prominently, the 1993 image of Mandela and Ali embracing in that Johannesburg hotel room. Below it was a quote from Mandela: "Muhammad Ali was a champion in every sense of the word, not just in the ring, but in life. He sacrificed for his beliefs and inspired millions, including myself during my darkest hours in prison." Today, in the Apartheid Museum in Johannesburg, there's an entire exhibit dedicated to the international support for the anti-apartheid movement. Among the photographs of protesters, activists, and world leaders, there's a prominent image of Muhammad Ali speaking at an anti-apartheid rally, and next to it is a placard with Mandela's words: "Athletes and artists who stood with us when it was dangerous to do so helped us believe that the world was watching, that we weren't forgotten." Muhammad Ali was one of those voices. He was one of our champions. The friendship between Muhammad Ali and Nelson Mandela teaches us something profound about freedom, sacrifice, and the connection between people who fight for justice. They came from different continents, different cultures, different struggles, but they understood each other in a way that few people could. They both knew what it meant to lose everything for your principles. They both knew what it meant to be imprisoned, whether by bars or by politics or by disease. And they both knew that real freedom isn't about being outside the wall. It's about staying true to yourself, no matter what they take from you. When Mandela held Ali's trembling hands in that hotel room and said, "They tried to break us, but we didn't break," he was speaking a truth that only two men who'd lived through that kind of sacrifice could fully understand. They were champions not because of what they won, but because of what they refused to lose: their principles, their dignity, their freedom of spirit. The story of their friendship reminds us that the greatest victories aren't always celebrated with medals or parades. Sometimes the greatest victory is simply refusing to become what your enemies want you to be. It's staying free inside even when they take away your freedom outside. It's keeping your dignity even when they try to strip it away. It's continuing to fight, even when the fight seems impossible to win. Muhammad Ali lost 3.5 years of his boxing career for his principles. Nelson Mandela lost 27 years of his life in prison for his principles. But neither man lost what mattered most. They never lost themselves. And in finding each other, in recognizing that shared sacrifice and that shared strength, they created a friendship that would inspire millions of people around the world to stand up for what they believe in, no matter the cost. CTA 300 km. Share it with anyone who's facing a choice between doing what's easy and doing what's right. Share it with people who need to be reminded that real freedom comes from within, that no one can take away your dignity unless you give it to them. Muhammad Ali and Nelson Mandela showed us that sacrifice for principle isn't loss, it's victory. Second, take a moment to think about your own principles. What would you give up for what you believe in? Ali gave up his boxing title and 3.5 years of his career. Mandela gave up 27 years of his life. What they got in return was something no one could ever take away: their integrity, their freedom of spirit, their place in history as men who couldn't be bought, couldn't be broken,
couldn't be made into something they weren't. That's available to all of us, but it requires courage. Third, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We tell these stories every week. True stories about Muhammad Ali that go beyond the boxing ring. Stories about courage, sacrifice, friendship, and what it really means to be a champion. These aren't just sports stories. These are stories about being human, about choosing the hard right over the easy wrong. Drop a comment and tell me, who inspires you to stand up for what you believe in? Who's your Nelson Mandela or Muhammad Ali? And what principle would you sacrifice for if you had to? Your story might inspire someone else to find their courage. Remember what Mandela told Ali: they tried to break us, but we didn't break. Whatever you're facing, whatever choice you're confronting, don't break. Stay true to yourself. That's the real victory. Keep fighting for what matters. Keep standing up for what's right. That's how we honor these two champions. That's how we carry their legacy forward. If this story moved you, if it reminded you what real courage looks like, I need you to take action right now. First, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe they're facing a choice between doing what's easy and doing what's right. Maybe they think sacrifice isn't worth it. Show them Muhammad Ali and Nelson Mandela, two men who lost everything for their principles and gained something nobody could ever take away: their dignity, their freedom of spirit, their place in history. That's the real victory. Second, ask yourself this question: what do you stand for? Ali gave up 3.5 years of his career. Mandela gave up 27 years of his life. Both men chose principle over comfort, integrity over safety. We might never face choices that extreme, but we all face moments where we have to decide who we're going to be. This story is a reminder that staying true to yourself is always worth it, no matter the cost. Third, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Every week, we share true stories about Muhammad Ali that go beyond boxing, stories about courage, sacrifice, and what it means to be a champion in life. These stories aren't just about sports, they're about being human. Drop a comment below. Who inspires you to stand up for what you believe in? What principle would you sacrifice for? Your answer might inspire someone else to find their courage. Remember Mandela's words to Ali: they tried to break us, but we didn't break. Whatever you're facing today, don't break. Stay true to yourself. That's how champions are made. Keep fighting for what matters. We're all in this together.